time. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Westman Wedding Expo's Ask the Experts. I'm your host, Brian Podwarny, and I get to chat with some of the vendors from the upcoming Westman Wedding Expo and talk about what is hot and what's not, and so on, and what kind of helpful tips that they can give all of the great people that are getting married and that sort of thing. Today, I'm joined by Ruth Loewen, who has a company called, and I'm going to get this name wrong because I can never pronounce it properly, Enchanted Moments Couture.
Couture.
Something like that. How do I say that, Ruth?
Couture.
Couture. Bless you. That's all I got.
It's a funny word. It is a funny word. It's just yeah, the meaning behind it, which is supposed to mean like high-end custom. Most of it's used as a term towards like garments and things like that, but it is now being used more in the wedding world for even decor or stationery and things like that. So
cool. And stationery is kind of where you originally got your start, right? I mean, that, or how the business started. I know it's morphed into wedding planning, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But give us a little hint of the design work, how you got started, and we'll go from there.
Well, I've always been a very creative person, and after the birth of our second child, I was looking for something to kind of do from home, and I really needed like a creative outlet, because creative people, as you well know, they kind of go a little stir crazy if they don't have somewhere to put this. So I started looking into different things. I was looking into like maybe making dresses or all sorts of different options, and then finally I made some baby shower invites actually for family, and I couldn't wait to get home with the stuff and get started. Like, it was just so exciting for me. And so then as soon as I got into it, I'm like, hey, I love this. So I decided to start my company, and that was 8 years ago now.
Wow.
And then I had heard about the Westman Wedding Expo, which is actually kind of funny. It was just right after I decided to start my company. A month later, I didn't have any samples made, anything like that. And I talked to you, and you're like, oh, hey, well, we would like to have somebody with stationery. Do you want to come? And I'm like, okay. So I think it was like 2 weeks before the show, and I had to go and design my entire line of stationery to go into the show. I had been inquiring for like the next year. I wasn't even thinking, that year, but yeah, it went well. I got a lot of good feedback, and it was a real big learning curve, after I got started, finding all of your wholesalers and your suppliers and everything like that, so you can bring your prices down.
And that's where it gets really, really interesting, and because everything that you do is handmade. Is that right? Like, you are literally touching every single envelope and every single invitation. Like, this is made with love.
Yes. Yeah, it's all handcrafted. So like when I first started out, I didn't have a supplier for, let's say, like pocket invitations, which was really huge right when I started. And so I decided to come up with a way to make my own. So I make ones just strictly out of ribbon, actually, that I stick into the inside of the invite. And so it's kind of become my signature now. Most people, if they see one, they're like, oh, I know where that came from, type of thing, because it was just something, kind of created out of necessity at the beginning, but it's really kind of morphed into a unique aspect of my business now. So
when it comes to, I mean, that you just made your own sort of look at, and you, like you say, you designed it out of a need. Do you find that, obviously you've been in business for 8 years now, like, things, I'm guessing, have changed in the style, presentation, and so on. What do you find is the more commonly asked for and requested looks and designs looking into 2018 and 19?
I am noticing like a lot of calligraphy style fonts. People are kind of seeming to go a little way away from so much pocket invitations to now they're going more into like just a printed card. but they want like watercolor paintings are huge, to incorporate that. So they're kind of going, I would say more of like a natural look. Water kind of going back to the, you know, the old ages where they had like handwritten things, and
Oh
it's a
yeah.
little more, I don't know what you would say, like personalized type of style, but that's kind of the direction it goes. And I actually paint too, so um, as a result, I've, you know, been seeing this trend, and I'm like, well, hey, I can do that. So now I offer like custom watercolor paintings. So if you have a particular thing you want in like have in mind of what you want, then I can actually paint it for you and put it right onto your
What
stationery.
let's take it to a bit of a wedding planning sort of position. When it comes to sending out the invitations, who should get invited? Do you have any do you have any opinions or tips that you can give people on who should be invited and when they should do that?
Yeah, definitely. Like stationery, there's a lot of different etiquette rules and invitations, and people. Number one, the bride's name always comes first. Um, some people don't seem to understand that. They're like, why does the bride's name come first? You know, and I've had some couples, they're like insistent, no, the groom's name has to come first. It's like, no, tradition, bride's name comes first. And it's basically, it stems down from way back in the day when the bride's parents would pay for the wedding. So it would start out as, you know, the bride's parents saying, you know, we're inviting you to the wedding of our daughter being married to, and then so and so. So it would always be her name first. The bride's name was always given the place of honor. So that's one thing. Remember, always bride's names first. Secondly, if you're trying to think of like a timeline of when you're supposed to send them out, because people are like, well, when do I send out save the dates? When do I send out the invite? Save the dates you can do between a year up to 6 months before the wedding. Then the invitations, I always say 8 to 10 weeks before. Just make sure that
Okay.
like if you have out of town guests and things like that, they can actually make the travel arrangements and that kind of thing, and have time to reply. And you also have to make sure that, you know, when you're setting your RSVP date, that you give enough time for people to send back their RSVP card. If you're doing mail back RSVPs, that's another option. The RSVP cards are, there's a whole different ball game, but with coming age, you know, there's so many different options now. You know, people are opting to not even have RSVP cards anymore. They're opting to do like email and phone number because it's faster. And you know, there's little tips and tricks to that too. I always say, like, you know, if you're giving a phone number, don't give your cell number if possible. If you still have a home phone, which you might not, but if you do, give them that, and to have a notepad by the phone so that you can write things down. Because, you know, some people, if they're calling you while you're in the grocery store or whatever, you might not remember to write down their RSVP when they say, you know, I'm coming or I'm not.
And
And then,
but there's something to be said about getting that invitation reply card in the mail.
yeah,
You get that bump of excitement. I don't know, you get it from a
me
text
too.
or an email. It's like, oh, I got another email, and it goes to junk mail and whatever. It's like, oh, I've got it.
Well, and it's so fun to see, like, all, you know, if you have like for example, a large wedding, to see all these like bucket loads of cards coming back. You know, it's like it's very exuberant and exciting, and it is the more traditional way of doing things too. So if you're having more of a traditional themed wedding, then you should definitely be thinking about how you're portraying that to your guests. So the one thing would be, I would recommend staying with the RSVP card if it's a more traditional wedding, because you know that's all part and parcel with everything.
One piece of advice to any bride or groom that is watching right now: what kind of advice would you give them regarding invitations, wedding planning, so on and so forth?
I think the one biggest thing I would say is, remember that it's your wedding day. Like, it's your wedding day. In, you know, planning a wedding and things like that, a lot of people seem to think that they have their opinions, you know, and it can be very stressful for the couple because they can't please, let's say, their best friend and their mom, and they're always going back and forth. Well, what do we do? And at the end of the day, it's always important just to remember it's your wedding and it should be the way you want it. And you're not going to be able to please absolutely everyone. And if you look back on your wedding, you want to remember that those choices that you made, those were your choices, and that was done the way you wanted it originally. And you don't want to have those regrets that, I should have done it this way because that's the way I wanted it, So just to remember that, because it can get lost in the hubbub of everything and all the people that have their little opinions. And
and
that would be my
opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way? Do you have what's your website address, Facebook, and that sort of stuff? How do people find you?
So my website is enchantedmoments.ca, and my email address is very simple again, info@enchantedmoments.ca. And if they want to get a hold of me, they can either email me or, they can give me a call on my cell. I always try my very best to answer, even late at night. I'm a late person, so I answer. I've had consultations with clients at midnight. So, my number for my cell is 204-573-0761. And yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for giving me your time today, and again giving the viewers your time, because you gave some really great tips and you were truly an expert in your field. So thank you so much.
Thank you.